In this episode of Find the Good News, I had the opportunity to visit with Grammy-nominated educator, saxophonist, and public speaker, and my new friend, Mickey Smith Jr. I really got a lot out of this conversation with Mickey, and I think I could have stayed inside of his headspace for several more hours. Mickey puts himself out there and really opens up, which I think is crucial to connecting with other people. Our conversation was uplifting and invigorating, and I found myself reflecting on everything we talked about well into the night. It's been easy for me to find the good in Mickey, and I think you'll find something good as well.
Wake up, it's morning. You're dreaming up a story I can hear the way it's going, 'cause you're laughing in your sleep on the path to your deliverance, and a holy wall of light pouring through your window.
Old news, bad news, fake news. Sometimes you just want to shut it all down and get no news at all. With Find the Good News, I aim to change that by focusing on good people doing good work. I visit with artists, educators, civic and spiritual leaders, musicians, business owners, students, volunteers, and everyday citizens who are using their creativity, resources, and talents to bring hope and happiness to their corner of the world. In each episode, I dig into the hearts and minds of my extraordinary guests. We have street-level conversations about relatable things going on in their lives. Discover the critical life experiences that shape them, the perspectives that drive them, and the fundamental beliefs that are anchoring them to a path of goodness. There's a lot of news in the world. My name is Oran Parker, and I'm going to find the good.
And I love you just as well.
I think the overall idea that we have here is some of the conversations you and I've had. You know, I mean, gosh, how long ago was it that we met for the first time? Probably 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And I find that for me, you know, I'm in advertising, but it's sort of this kind of hybrid industry. You know, you've got the creative aspect, but then you got the economics of the whole thing. And I always have struggled with how to blend those two things together. You know, it's like the heart and a machine, or the mind and a machine, and, you know, making them work together. And it's not always easy to live in two worlds like that. So anyway, I find that a lot of people over these last 20 years of doing this have similar struggles. You know, even I always thought it was just creative types, but it's really anybody that has a passion for something.
Yeah.
So that passion's coming from somewhere that's not analytical, you know.
The passion's not always accepted and understood.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. So we don't know how to, and I don't know, just trying to reconcile that. And then that combined with, so you get up every day and you go out into the world, and I just find that looking back more and more, our news feeds are just filled with hard things to see, hard things to hear, like real deep, hard, complicated moral dilemmas in politics and just life. And I was like, you know, there's just not enough good news out there, really and truly, just not enough. And then I thought, well, maybe there is, and I'm just not looking at it. And so I just got to thinking, I said, man, I meet so many wonderful people that when I leave, I think about them for days. I think about the things we talked about. And, you know, you're encountering them through business and through projects. And I'm like, man, some of these people know, some of them they just don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and I just want to, I guess, create a platform, shine on those people. And, you know, when I was thinking about kicking this off, I mean, there were some names that just came right to the top of my list. And we had got everything ready to launch this. And then you I communicated the other day because you had some good news to share.
Yeah.
You know, and just so you know, we're going to talk about that today.
Absolutely.
This won't come out till after you've made your public announcement. But anyway, one thing I want to do with this podcast is start off with something that I ask everybody, the same question right out the gate to just kick the whole thing off. And it's something I go home every night and I ask my kids this. And I ask them, did anything good happen today? Because I used to go home and say, how was your day? Or what went on at school today? Or how was practice? Well, that opened up a can of worms. And sometimes I would find that, oh, you know, this happened and that happened and this negative thing and that negative thing. It could turn into sort of like a path for negativity. So you spend the bulk of your time kind of consoling and trying to pull them back from that and giving them advice, which is good. But we weren't spending an equal amount of time on the positive things. And I thought, you know, we need to retrain our brains and our kids' brains to start trying to identify the lights throughout the day, you know, like the bright spots, instead of just lingering on the dark spots, you know, that may have hurt them or something. Go, hey, was there some kind of joy today? And really start finding those little things that they could cherish. So I'm gonna ask you the same question right out the gate. Did anything good happen to you today?
Yeah, a lot of good happened.
Yeah?
A lot of good happened. One thing that happened today was I had some new students that came in. I'm an educator, band director over at Maplewood Middle School. Been teaching there a number of years, and the program is flourishing. You know, it was growing. And every so often we get new students that come in. And the way that I structure my class and I operate it, if you're not used to it, it's a little different. We move at a pretty fast pace, especially the more advanced bands. We focus more on the person than the music. We focus more on how we affect one another and how our being is more relational. It takes teamwork to make the dream work.
Right.
We don't really touch music the first month, you know. So when kids come into our school, they're like, what are we doing? It confuses them. And then when we start playing, it goes really fast. We had these students that came in and they were terribly overwhelmed because they didn't feel like they were adequate.
It was just too much for them too fast.
Yeah.
They weren't ready.
But I'm real big on process. So my thing is, I don't want you to learn how to play the song as much as I want you to understand how to create your own song later.
Yeah,
how
okay.
to decipher it for yourself. I equate it to them like, I can tie your shoe, but how much better is it when you can tie your own?
Yeah.
And I tell them a story about my little boy when he figured out how to do it. And most kids get that. Well, that's a cute story, but when you're struggling and when you can't get it, there's some frustration. Well, I'm always there to kind of encourage them, to show them how to keep going. And today we did something musically in class. We basically went through a series of key centers I equate music can be played in different keys. You learn different scales, arpeggios, different techniques to figure out how to play and create these different sounds. And I equate each sound to a language. So I tell them, if we play in the key of B flat, then we're playing in B flat knees.
Okay.
We play in E flat knees. And I explain to them that I can say hello, bonjour, konnichiwa, hola. I said the same thing, hello, in different languages. And music is the same way. Having said that, those students could barely say hello when they got to me. But today we basically said hello, bonjour, hola, konnichiwa. We played this music in 5 different keys, and you could see when we finished, we stopped and you could hear a pin drop in the room. Matter of fact, it was so good because there was other things we were working on in the midst of all this, these fundamentals. It was so good that when music is really tight and you finish it and we all stop together, it creates what we call an overtone series. So the notes that you play create new notes that weren't intended. And when we finished, you could hear the reverberation. You could hear that reverb. You could hear that resonance that was happening in the room.
Right.
And without me saying a word, I'd say about 40% of the kids' eyes got big. Like they heard it. They got it for the first time.
Yeah.
And some of those kids that got it were the ones that had just moved in. And one of the reasons some of the kids' eyes didn't get big is because I affectionately tell them that they're spoiled. I tell them, y'all are so used to it being good, you don't understand. It's not like this everywhere. And this is not to diminish anybody else's program. It's just there's some really cool things that are happening here that's not the norm.
Right. You know, you talking about that, something comes to mind for me, and it's not music related, but the word harmony comes to mind. I guess in the sense of harmony isn't just music, it's a lot of things. And I find that in art or really just anything. I mean, I for some reason it popped in my head when you were talking about that when I used to work at this coffee shop. And, you know, I was 18 or 19 years old, and, you know, you start a new job, and I was overwhelmed. I'd never waited tables before, and it's like, okay, here's how you run the cappuccino machine, and then you got to do this, and this is how you steam the glass, and then this is where all these cups are at and all the ingredients. And I remember being overwhelmed a lot like you said about those kids. You know, they come in and they're like, oh, I don't know what's going on. I'm too far behind. And I think a lot of us feel that way in all kinds of things in life. But I remember one day when I was just, I don't know what it was. It wasn't music again, but I felt something making those coffees. It was probably 2 or 3 months later, but I was busy and, you know, I had a bunch of orders and man, I walked back there and just like thoughtlessly just, you know, made the cappuccino, foamed, put the right amount of foam on the top, went out there, delivered that, came back, took another order. And at some point I remember going, it was almost like I felt lifted. And it was just coffee, man. But I remember thinking, oh, this is that moment that comes with so many things where everything has come together, you know, and it's just sort of in you just for that moment. Now, you could call it muscle memory. If you're analytical, you could say, oh, that's what practice is for, which it is. But there was just something special about that. And I don't know why, but to this day, I mean, even though I don't make coffee for a living, that moment stuck with me as like, I need to watch for this in my life, in other places. Like when that feeling comes, that means to me, I always said it means that everything's aligned just right in this moment. No matter what you're doing, you're where you're supposed to be. I mean, some people say that's what deja vu is, but I always felt like when I feel that moment, you know, and it just sounds like what you described to me.
That beautiful ordinary.
Beautiful ordinary. That's right.
You know, and we miss that because we get so caught up on the filters and the post and the gram and all this, and it looks larger than life, and we're always looking for those big things. But I tell the students all the time, life is just success, or whatever you want to call it, is small things done well, stacked on top of each other over time.
Yeah.
And if you can stay cognizant, if you can stay aware of those small things and find the joy in the small things that are done well, that are stacked on top of each other. I tell the students that because that occurred to me. I was flying. I don't do this often, but this was a cool moment. I was flying to Los Cobos, Mexico to perform. Okay.
Yeah.
Never been there before. Okay. I'm not that type of a globetrotter. So this was a pretty still special moment for me. So I'm flying, and we saw some, I guess temples. It was like a temple or something. Not a pyramid, but it was some type of building.
Yeah.
And I asked the guy about it, you know, because you could see it down there in the, you know.
Like the foliage.
Yeah. And he said, you know, apparently he flies there a lot. So he kind of knew, I don't want to say a know-it-all, but my man, he appeared to be knowledgeable about
Right.
it. And he didn't mind sharing
He
his knowledge.
tour guided at that point. Right, yeah.
So he gives me the whole history and the background. But the coolest thing I took away from that was at one point he says, you do know, the thing I was looking at, he said, you do know that's not big stones. I said, huh? I said, but, you know, to myself, I'm thinking, yeah, it is. I can see it. He began to explain to me how it's actually small little things they put on top of each other. They take one pebble, one rock, but by the time they built it up, it became a wall. And then that wall, they did the process over again. Then it becomes a tower. And that's why I tell the students, I said, you got to take that small thing that doesn't look like much, that little pebble that looks worthless, that little 5 minutes of practice, that little time listening, or that little time getting mentored, just those little things that don't look like much. And after a while, it becomes a wall of success, you know?
Yeah, that actually, you know, one of my favorite books all time. I remember where I was when I read it for the first time. I was driving to Colorado with my dad. I was probably 20 years old, and I had bought it just before we took that trip. I wanted something to read, and I don't know if you've ever read it. It's the Tao Te Ching.
No, I hadn't.
It's a Chinese book, you know, ancient. Lao Tzu. He's a mysterious figure in history that some go, did he exist or did he not exist, you know? But the first line, which we've probably all heard in some form or another, is "Path of 1,000 miles begins beneath one's own feet," you know, or some version of that. And you know, I remember closing that book because it's filled with little insights like that. And I say little insights, I mean, you know, deep, powerful insights that are just timeless. And one of the things was, see the small as large and the few as many. Accomplish the difficult task through a series of small acts. Simple. And it's exactly what you're talking about, man. I mean, we tend to forget that, I think.
Yeah.
We get busy and
we look for the quick, fast thing.
Yeah.
We go for the home run.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to. Sometimes it's small ball.
Yeah.
Sometimes you win by doing those fundamental things, by understanding that's not about you. Because the home run, that's all about you. I mean, like, you hit it, the crowd goes wild, and a lot of times it's just you running the bases. But man, some of the best games I've seen, and I'm not a baseball buff by any means, but I do notice that those epic moments are usually when somebody else is on base. And you can provide opportunities, RBI, the runners batted in, that you can be a part of something greater than yourself. That's when the team really gets excited because they feel like they've all had a part in it.
Yeah.
And that's why I say sometimes it's those smaller things. You know, even right now we're getting ready for this event called Sax in the City, and I struggle with that today. Today it was one of those things. I'm a control freak. I like stuff done well. I have vision.
Yeah.
And when you have a certain vision, and I'm artistic about stuff, and I'm telling you, especially when I see it. Now I'm very good about, you know, delegating and kind of leaning, but when I know what it's supposed to look like, I'm very animate about what it should be, you know. And there was just some things I knew needed to happen. And long story short, today I went against the grain and I let go.
Yeah.
And I let my team help. And some phenomenal things happened today, just in the last hour. That's why when you said what good happened today, I'm like, hey, we ain't even got enough time, man.
You know, man, it's funny that this subject sort of has painted the day, because I started my day off having a similar conversation. I've got a new client, you know, in North Louisiana, and we were talking about hiring interns, you know, and this person's really somebody that I respect, super nice person, and I'd love to get her on the podcast, to be honest with you. And we were talking about this new position she's got. Now, it's not a position like mine as a creative director, but she does have to direct a person who is doing things that she used to do day in and day out. So she mentioned, you know, that she became the voice of the company that she worked for in this position she was in. But now that she's having to delegate that out, and she's finding it's hard to let it go and not micromanage it and try to tailor that other person's voice to sound like what she was doing. And, you know, we talked about it for a long time. I said, you know, I struggled with the same thing, because for years I was a graphics designer. I mean, that was it, you know. And then as I meandered into other things and became a writer and then a videographer and then a photographer, once you start securing all these other skills, you know, you begin to be able to make a whole concept yourself, you know.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the brands you're managing, you're doing it all. So when I moved away from that and had a team, that was a real struggle for at least the first 2 or 3 years, was to just, I'd had to have a vision. You meet with the designer, and then I remember in the early days feeling like, that's just not what I want. That's not what I said. And as the years went by, I started to realize, actually, it is what I said. And they did a good job too. And to the consumer and to my client, it's going to be a fantastic job. It just doesn't look like the picture I had in my head, which I'm trying to explain that to them in words. And I finally did, like you said. I mean, as the years went by, I went, okay, I need to let this go. In the way I explained it to her today, and this is probably a poor way to do it, I said, you know, if it were me doing the design and I was going down the river in a boat, I knew what dock I was going to be at, what time I was going to be there, and I was going to get there and get there and dock that boat right where it needed to be. I had to start learning with a team and with a designer. I can send them down the river, and they're going to head in the same direction, and they're going to get in the same vicinity. They just might not park it right in that same dock I'm going to park, but we're heading to the same place, you know.
And you know what else, too? I realized today, hearing you say that, too. There was something, I'm going to be honest, there was something that happened today where a person wanted to help me.
Yeah.
But I could have got it done quicker. Just by myself.
I've been there.
You know, and the brain saturated, and I didn't really have the time and the patience for the extra convo and the extra stuff that comes with the collaborations. You know? Sometimes there's just extra. It's not bad. I just didn't have the headspace and the heart space for it right now. So I went ahead and I took care of all of it. I knocked it out. And then I let the individual know And I could even feel in our conversation, I guess you could say a text, I could hear that I could feel there was disappointment.
Yeah, sure.
And I thought, how selfish.
I've been there, man, Mickey. You're saying things that I have went through. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can think of the projects because they sting a little. Mm-hmm. It's weird because I can remember I had a great designer that worked here, and I just felt like the person just was not getting what I was saying, but I didn't have time to do it.
Yeah.
But I had so much. I had this picture in my head, and I felt like, man, I've tried to describe it this way. I've tried sketching it. I've tried giving the resources, and I'm spending more time trying to get this other person to do it the way that I need this to be. And then eventually I got frustrated, and I was like, I'm going home tonight, and I'm doing this. So I went home, took me about 2.5 hours, and I went back and looked at the amount of hours I had spent because we track all our time, and I'm like, man, I've spent 12 hours doing this, and I did it myself, and it was good, and it was the way I wanted it, and I sent it off to the client in like 2.5 hours. But the frustration I felt of clinging to my own idea to that point, it was almost just poisonous to me. I finally realized, I was like, man, and then the designer was offended. They never said they were offended, but I knew. I could tell by our interactions for the next week. There was a level like I didn't trust them, but I did trust them. And I'd let them do 100 other things.
Exactly. There was
but
no
on this
ill
one,
intent.
but it left just a mark. And I think those kind of things just they change the nature of the relationship with the person. And
that's why I say sometimes you got to go with your gut, because sometimes we know that it's better to be together.
Yeah.
And we just still choose to kind of go the own path. And the crazy thing is, even listening to you, it occurs to me, the crazy thing is, as intent as we may be in trying to get the vision the way it's supposed to be, I believe, honestly, God, universe, whatever you want to say, sometimes it's trying to get, they're that intent on getting something new to us, and maybe it was through that other person.
Right
you know
on,
what I mean?
yeah.
And then you're blocking it. And then another crazy thing that occurred to me, all this occurred to me as I'm sitting there, I ended up going back and telling the person, let's meet anyway. Matter of fact, we're meeting today. And honestly, I don't really have to meet with the person, but I created a space for us to meet, and I'm creating a gap that person can fill.
yeah,
Because I want them to be part of the process. And it occurred to me that later, when I do need that person, if I block them out now, they won't have that same fire to help later.
yeah. You're talking big stuff here because, and this is kind of the things that I think about too. It's not just about our art and our creativity or our business. That same principle applies to so many things. Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes we end up, all of us do, not just as individuals, but as groups and structures and institutions that have traditions. The tradition sometimes can become more important than the thing that maybe the tradition arose from. Mm-hmm. And so we protect the tradition at all costs, even if we're keeping a person out of it and adding a new person to it. You bring something new that maybe speaks to another group of people. It's about inclusiveness, and you begin to see something still good form or expand. But if we just cling to the tradition, I don't know. I think it can almost become a husk of the thing that it started from. There's so many things that I think that about. I'm kind of, I guess, alluding a lot to sort of faith-related things. I see that quite often, when it comes to inclusion and being inviting to new people. Mm-hmm. I talked about this with my son a lot. I said, when you invite someone in, but the first thing you're telling them is you're welcome to be here, we want you here, but we don't want you the way you are. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's inclusion. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And that's kind of what you're saying. Absolutely. In a way. And with a team, you go, hey, I want to hire you. and I want to change my team. I want my team to become whatever you're adding to it. Or you can have the attitude of, I want to hire you because you can do this job and sit in this chair and be another warm body, and then when you're gone, I'll just stick somebody else in there. I know from here, we're a small team. I mean, we've had 5, 4, 3, it's been just me and my wife. But every time a new person comes in or there's a person that leaves, the dynamic shifts.
Sure.
I mean, we've talked about it. I can see it because it's so small. I can see it.
Change is so important. It's inevitable, And I'm finding that more than anything, that if you want to grow, I had a band director. Being a music educator myself, you come in and quickly you realize you don't know what you thought you knew.
Man, yeah.
Because when you come in, speaking from my standpoint, I'm coming in out of college where everybody could play, okay? And we studied the theory. We took the class and learned how to, quote unquote, teach, but it was next to our peers who already knew. So our teaching was falling on the ears of those who already had a certain understanding and grasp of concepts.
Yeah.
Then you're thrust into this room where little people, I call them the midget mafia, they don't know their left from their right. When you say put your hand at 1 o'clock, I was sharing that. I had a professor come into our class today, and she said, tell the kids, place the thumb at 1 o'clock. I told her in private, I said, that means nothing to them. They don't know what a watch or a clock is.
Yeah,
everything's digital.
Yeah, right.
So our thinking has to constantly be changing. There's things that were told to me when I was 10. I can't tell them that same way because it means nothing to them. So here I am. I'm a new teacher. I'm in this place, and I had this director. He came in, and he shared these words. He said your goal should be to stay green. He said you need to be like a banana, but not like a banana. I said, what do you mean? He said when a banana is at its best, we don't want it. We want a banana when it's at its worst. And the fact of the matter is, the moment we want the banana is when it's dying. When it's ripe, it's rot. It's dying. So it wants to stay green, because if it's green, then that's life. It's growing. It's still coming into its own. And you never want to get to that place where you think you know everything, or you're so fixed that it was this way. I got the lesson plan from 1978, and that's what I'm rolling with. It worked good in the summer of 68 or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that may have been a sweet lesson plan in 82. It might have, man, that may have been, I'm going to be honest, even in our talk, I had a good run. I had a great year in 2015 or 2014. Matter of fact, the year was so celebrated that even the Grammys recognized it as being, hey, he's got something of quality. But since then, I had two choices. I could maintain and do it the way that I did and stay in that season of celebration and rot.
Yeah.
Or I could realize, wow, this was recognized or celebrated for a reason. Let me go back to the processes. Let's figure out the why. And people are always trying to discover their why, but I think it's really the who and the what. It's those components that ultimately create the why. So I'm always looking for the why, but it's really the whats and the who's and all that kind of stuff. And now today, if you look at what I do today in the classroom, it's dynamically different than what I did in 2015. But there are some parallels. There's some things that are constants, obviously. But having an assistant band director that comes in the mornings now, he challenges me. He challenges in the sense of, we're not combative, we're not argumentative, but he's always asking. And I let him know that from day one when he came on. I said, look, obviously I have experience. I said, but what I don't have is the perspective you have.
Yeah.
We all have a perspective. And he comes in and he shares his perspective. And sometimes reluctantly I accept it because there's no reason for me to say no. And I grow from it.
You're right. I mean, talking to people who have different perspectives is so important. And I find that for me, I have to get out of here. That's part of why we're doing this right here, because I have to get out of what I call the clock. I feel sometimes, and I think a lot of people probably feel this way. I feel like waking up in the morning becomes just a clock, and I'm a big believer in being present. In the moment. And you hear everybody say it. Pay attention to what's going on right in front of you. Focus on that. Be, to the precious present. and mindfulness and all of that stuff. And I'm a big believer in it. But at the same time, the clock strikes 4 a.m. and you get going and you go and you go, and it's deadlines and schedules and 400 emails, and then you got to be here and you got to be there. And so this clock's just ticking like a bomb all day. And I think it takes us out of this headspace that you and I are getting into, and where you get, probably are living most of the time when you're talking to a person. But a kid or a student, and I guess that's kind of the point I'm making, is I have to make time to talk to new people, and so engage with people, because if I get stuck in that clock, in my own headspace, then I'm getting no new experiences, no new perspectives, and then your energy gets depleted, and then you stop seeking new perspectives, even if you had, whether it was reading or articles or whatever you're doing to add new information to your life, or just going to do something different. So I think it's really important, and what you're doing every day, connecting with a person, a kid, especially maybe one-on-one, man.
Yeah.
You probably really get a lot out of that, don't you?
Well,
like the one-on-one.
I tell the students this, and a lot of times we end up sharing with others what's truth for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the only way it really resonates.
Yeah.
I tell the kids all the time, I say, everyone has a lack of self-awareness. That's why a Michael Jordan still needed a Phil Jackson to coach him. That's why LeBron James still needs a coach. That's why Tom Brady still needs a Bill Belichick. These are fantastic individuals in and of their own, but isn't it amazing that they still need a coach? And that's because I tell the students, success, that thing that you're trying to get, it's just like your nose. Yeah. Your gifts, your talents, your ability is just like your nose. You can see it, but you can't see it like somebody else can see it for you.
Right.
You're only going to see a measure of it. And matter of fact, if you try too hard, your vision might even get messed up. You might cross your eyes trying to see this nose right in front of you. But at the end of the day, everybody has a certain lack of self-awareness. That's why that ability to connect with others is so important. It gives you the feedback in the mirror that you can give yourself.
We say that a lot in our home and this in life in general, is that other people are mirrors. Mm-hmm. If you want to know who you are, really, you can try to write it down and do all the self-analysis you want, but you don't really know who you are until you're in some kind of, whether it's a intimate relationship or just any kind of.
It's funny you say that, because that's one thing I don't get aggravated too much, but there's one little thing that frustrates me sometimes.
What is
when
it?
I'm working with educators or schools or groups, that we don't utilize an incredible resource. For example, as a musician, I'm getting ready to do a show. Okay, so as I've been preparing for this show, I tell them I've been waiting my whole life for this show, because this show is going to be the culmination of everything I've done since I was 10 years old. Like all the wrong notes, all the scales, everything led to this moment. And this moment will lead to the next moment. But when I look back specifically at this concert, there's been recordings that I've done. I'm going to showcase some new music. When I go in the studio and you record, it's one of the most agonizing things, because the microphone doesn't lie. You know what I mean?
Right.
You might think I was sweet with that horn lick, and man, I did that little riff and that little run, and it don't sound like you thought it sounded in your head, And the truth is, it's coming back on those speakers, and you have to face that harsh truth that this is what it truly is. And I say that to say, there's lots of moments that I use, whether it's in the studio, sometimes I just record myself, sometimes I'm with my peers and my friends, and we give feedback. And when you hear this concert, you're going to hear sounds that have been refined thanks to that time that we spent together, whether it's in the studio. And the thing is this, when I talk with teachers, everybody can understand why a musician would have to go in the studio and record. Everybody understands why a football team sits and watch film. I just spoke at a school. It's the third winningest football team in Texas state history, and they won 2 state championships in the last 2 years. And I told the teachers, I said, so am I to assume we're not going to watch film this year? And they all laughed. No, of course they're going to watch film. And I begin to ask them the why. Why are they watching film? They begin to say certain things, and for this reason, that reason. tendencies, right? Right. One thing, you can't run the same play all the time. You know, maybe we're watching film to see what the tendencies of another team is, or our team is, our strengths, weaknesses. And then after I let them come with all those ideas, I said, when was the last time you filmed yourself teaching?
Yeah.
Because we think we're teaching a certain way. And I had a gentleman out, he asked me to come in his classroom and give him some feedback. And he told me, man, Mickey, I taught them, but they didn't learn it. Right. I'm going to say it again. He said, I taught them, but they didn't learn it. And I laughed. I said, so you do realize that in order for them to learn it, that's a direct reflection on the teaching. So if they didn't learn it, then you didn't truly teach it. And we had that kind of relationship where I could be
you were being
direct with him.
Right. He asked for your feedback.
I get that you said something, but talking is not the same thing as teaching, because teaching is reaching. And it's not always what you do, but it's how you're perceived. And that's why the mirror is so important. That's why others are so important, because we might think we're bringing it a certain way, but that other person can give you truth. I appreciate my wife. I appreciate her. Sometimes I don't appreciate her in the moment because it's emotional. That's my baby. That's my music. That's my project I'm working on. But she's my baby too. And she'll tell me, I've heard you in the past. This wasn't your best work.
Yeah.
And it may aggravate me, but I have to appreciate I got somebody in my corner that's going to love me enough to give me that truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think a lot of times we have enough. We got too many people liking. We got the likes. We got
nobody wants to offend anybody. I don't know. I say nobody wants to offend anybody. Now it's like, I think we kind of live in a polarized state where it's like either ultimately, it's like, how offensive can I be? And how, hey, it's okay to be offensive. But then you got the other side of it, how sensitive can I be?
Well, here's the thing. And I tell the kids, we got this thing in my class where we start each day with this mantra. We say, follow directions, raise your hand to speak, stay in your seat, be prepared, respect property of others, treat others with respect. The last one is gum, candy, food, or drink are not allowed. But the thing is, we say treat others with respect. And I remind them daily, and I have to do this. You have to remind them daily. I said, some days I will offend you. Some days I will anger you. But your offense does not necessarily mean that I came in an offensive way.
Yeah.
You see?
Right.
And I tell them, you have to take, I always want you to take a moment. If I say something, I may tell you something terrible today, like, go home and practice. It wasn't good. And honestly, we say that and you laugh and it's true. No,
it's true. My son gets told, like, hey, y'all need to practice.
If you're on the other end of that, man, depending on what happened, maybe the girlfriend broke with you, the boyfriend broke up with you that day, you had a bad day right before you came to my class, and just that simple phrase of me saying, go practice, it may have brought personal offense to you.
Right.
But it was presented in a way to edify you.
Yeah. It's interesting. Talking about getting offended brings up something for me that I contemplate a lot. And I constantly worry in this world because of people being offended. And I know there's a phrase out there that just, when I hear it, it gets under my skin so bad. And I hear it all the time. And it's when somebody calls someone a snowflake. And I mean, you may have heard it, but it's like, okay, snowflake. And one day I was like, I get it. I get why you're saying that. It's like, oh, you're special. Let's all dance around your feelings and all that. And I thought, yeah, I get that. But then I kept wondering why it offended me so bad. Because, I mean, they weren't saying it to me.
Yeah.
But after a while, I started realizing, I was like, there's really just, we've become inconsiderate. It's like we have stopped considering that something's going on in another human being's life. Yeah. And you said that about, when you said, maybe their boyfriend broke up with them or whatever, it just brought to mind for me a time period, which wasn't too many years ago, when I lost my father. And I remember it was the first big death I had been through. I'd lost grandparents before, not too long before my father, to be honest, but this was just, obviously, the gravity on losing a parent is just tremendous. And I remember taking off to go be with my mom and to work through, my father's arrangements. And it was a heavy, heavy time. And something changed in me. There was no doubt about it. I heard a guy the other day say losing a parent creates a hinge. And I was like, oh yeah. When he said those words, it stuck with me. That I have a hinge in my life. That's there. There is and I just visualize, like, if my life looked like an object at that moment, something bent, okay? Yeah. And it's always going to be there. And then I remember I guess not being consciously aware that I was tender. My heart was broke. I was wounded. I was mourning. And then as a business owner, a small business, I had to come back to work. I couldn't just take off and deal with it indefinitely. So you just deal with it as you wade back into the clock. And I remember having an interaction with a client not too many days later, and I was trying to not be sensitive. Mm-hmm. And I went to this meeting, and it was, there was just a lot of difficult timelined things discussed, and I felt like my brain was cleaved in half at that moment. It was like, man, I realize I'm hurting. I mean, I'm wounded. I got all this going on, this hinge that's being formed in you, And here I am having to listen to this. And that person, in retrospect, after the time passed, and I think about that particular meeting because it was my first big meeting, mm-hmm. They were doing nothing different. They were given feedback. They were not criticisms, but constructive criticisms. It was just a normal meeting. But my perception was like, you don't know what's going on in me and you don't care. How could they know? And it just made me think about that snowflake term, because I was a snowflake at that moment, like that derogatory term. And I thought, so what? And it made me just really think it's hard to do, but I really do try, man, to like go, I don't know what's happened with that person today. Mm-hmm. You just don't know, man. And it's hard to live your whole life so sensitive, but at the same time, what's wrong with being a little more...
I don't even think it's being sensitive as much as it goes back to that word again, being aware. Being aware. Because I was sharing with some educators. It's so easy to complain. It is. As an educator, it's so easy to complain because you're fixated on the subject matter. Right?
Yeah, right.
And then they're not being receptive to the subject matter. And it is personal because you've spent a lot of personal time preparing this, and it's like your baby, and you're presenting it, and then it's like, I know for a fact if my wife cooks something, I gotta eat it. I gotta eat something. Right? I can't just roll in like, you spent 3 hours on it. I ain't really
right.
feeling it.
So I put it in a plate, put it in the fridge. I get it.
And I can do that, and I have done that sometime. But I pay the cost, because it's not about the food. It's about that time that was spent on it. And I understand when teachers spend that kind of time and it's not received by the students. A lot of times we focus, these kids, they don't understand. And rightfully so. I totally get that. But I've also realized very few children, unless there's some type of sociopathic thing, and people are born like that. We got some really twisted people that are born, but not a lot. Not a lot. The percentages are very small. Few people wake up with the intent for malice.
Yeah, right.
And ill will. There's very few children the moment they wake up. There's
I'm gonna get out there. I'm gonna hurt
children of the
today.
corn just marching to school that day. I'm gonna get
right.
But we feel that way and it's easy. So what I always try to do is I always try to remember, number one, and I'm not perfect. These are things I grapple with. I try to remember that I'm not teaching students. I try to remember that that's somebody's child, and that thing can go one or two ways. If it's a healthy, quote unquote, healthy relationship or healthy dynamic, home dynamic, then it's straight up. It's hey, I'm teaching someone's child, and that person loves their child.
Right.
If it's not the ideal, then I gotta love even more because they're somebody's child, but they're not wanted by the person who calls them their child.
Yeah.
And sometimes the ones that need the love the most, they show it in the most peculiar ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the quote unquote bad kid. It's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's not about you.
That's right.
And I tell my students all the time when we get ready to play, I said, we say this, they can all quote it back. Maybe not the 6th grade because they just got me, but the 7th and 8th grade, and I can go to the high school right now and half of them are going to say it. If I start off, I say, it's not simply about you. It's not simply about me, but it's all about we. And we teach that. And we use music as that beautiful medium for it. For example, particularly if you come into my 8th grade class, I dare you to find out who the last chair player is. See, in music, you do real good, you get the first chair, the principal chair in the section, and then the next person gets second and third, and then it begins to go down as the performance level goes down until you get to the last chair. But when you come into my class, matter of fact, we got a few kids that transferred in. You can't tell the ones that just came last month from the ones that's been with me for 3 years. And that's because we work together and we get the concept that it doesn't do you any good to be the best in your section if your section is garbage. It doesn't do you any good to be thriving if your section is starving.
Right.
So we got to feed everybody. Now that doesn't take away from your ability. You can still be and it always works out. The ones that are good are still going to be good, but they're actually better because now they've created healthy competition that pushes them.
Yeah.
You know? So we use that at the end of the school year when we're all sitting down and have this big band party. It's amazing. We have a good time. Last year we had a dancing panda. It's a long story. It's phenomenal. The kids love it. They have a good time. And we get to the end. Once I let everybody go, I let the 6th grade go. Then I let the 7th grade go. And I tell the 8th grade to stay, because that's really my last week with them. And at that point, family vacations start, and I may never see some of these kids again. And I call them all in. I tell them, the joke was on you. And see, at this point, you got to understand, I've been going in on them. Like, we got to get this music right. This is blah, 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 blah. Got to get the scales. And everything, it looks like it was about the music. But I say, the joke was on you. This was never about music. And we begin to go back, and there's some things I quote, and you can see the light bulbs come on. So that wasn't about, it's like Mr. Miyagi with the...
wax
It wasn't
on,
about the
wax
car,
off, right.
man. Wax on, wax off. It was about taking you to that sweet place that you wanted to get to. It was about giving you something that would serve you past the car, that would serve you in a situation where maybe you're in the fight of your life and you need something to dig into, something that's going to help you defend yourself, something that's going to help you prepare yourself and go to that next level. That's what all this stuff was about. It was never about music. So for me, it's not about subject matter. It's showing the students they matter. And I think that comes from, like you said, developing that awareness. And if anything, I don't care if they become great musicians. Well, I do care. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I do care, but that's not the motivation. Right?
It's not your end goal.
That's not
if
the end
they put it down, you're teaching them life lessons.
That's what's going to really matter.
Navigate other territory.
Over, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the if I'm I guess proud of anything, it's that I run into the kid that's working in Walmart while they're in high school. They got this little girl. Matter of fact, we interviewed the little girl and her brother. Yeah, you know, I just thought about just coincidentally, we shooting the video, but I just was thinking about her just now. She is so young. She works the self-checkout line. They don't let youngsters work the self-checkout line. Think about that. That's a lot of responsibility because a lot of theft could happen on the self-checkout line. You got to have somebody that can assess, that can problem solve on the self-checkout line. You've got to be able to help people and solve other people's problems. You've got to be able to multitask and see many, many different vantage points because you're also security as well as customer service on the self-checkout line. So they got a 16-year-old at the most vulnerable place in the store. What does that say? That says that she's got some things in her that sometimes some adults don't have. And I tell the kids, I said, you guys make more decisions in one bar, in one measure of music, than some people make all day. And I'm reminded of that when I teach. You know, I think teaching helps me stay grounded because it would be very easy to start thinking, ooh, I got it. I got this saxophone thing and I'm all this and all that. But until you watch a kid start crying because they finally got the sound, and the sound ain't even great. It's just their first sound. They're so appreciative just to make a sound on the saxophone.
Right. And
it's like, dang, if he's that happy, why am I? You asked me what happened good today. I got to be able to find something good that happened. I can play all the notes on the saxophone. How about I start right there? They got some people that would give anything just to be able to do that thing that I do.
And I'm happy, I know it.
You've probably heard me mention filming videos, building websites, creating logos, or building brands on this podcast. Well, there's a good reason for that. I'm a brand builder, and my brand is Parker Brand Creative Services. My team and I have built countless brands in the Gulf Coast region, and a lot of our work in the travel and tourism industry is experienced across the country and honestly the whole world. We have our specialties: web, logo, package, and whole brand design, as well as video production and photography. But the reality is, we function as a full-service advertising agency to businesses that don't really mesh well with larger advertising agencies or just don't want to have in-house creative departments. But don't listen to what I say. Just go to our website, parkerbrandup.com, and take a look at what we do. We're a show it, don't say it team. Okay, you should definitely say it too, but you know what I mean. That's parkerbrandup.com. We think sideways, we push forward, and we'll get your brand up.
So take this, you've earned it, a melody.
You know, not to get too far off subject, but sitting down with an educator like you, it makes me think of those teachers for me that really stood out. And you know, the ones that stood out were the dynamic teachers for sure. But to me, it was, and that might just be the way I'm wired. It might be my worldview, it might be the way I see things, are the ones that recognized that I was a human being and just a person. I remember in junior high, my mom and dad had split up, and I didn't even realize. I was too young. I mean, I knew I was going through something, but I never sat down and went, oh, I'm going through something. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how many kids actually sit down and go, oh, my parents are split up. I'm about to go through an emotionally hard time, and I'm going to still have to go to school and do all this stuff. None of those thoughts occur to you. You just are in it. One day you're not, and one day you are. And I guess, I don't think I was acting out, but I think I must have been doing something. And this teacher, it was my history teacher, I'm not going to say her name, but she calls me out in the hall. And I thought, oh, I'm in trouble. What did I do? I hadn't done anything, at least I thought. And she just took me down the hall, kind of outside the class, and she said, are you okay? And to this day, I still wonder, like, how did she know I wasn't okay? I mean, she's got class after class. It's not like, and we didn't have like a special, at least to me, I didn't look at her and go, oh, that's my favorite teacher, and bring her an apple and put it on her desk every day. I wasn't drawing her, leaving her a card, buying her presents. She was just another one of my teachers. But she calls me out there and she says, are you okay? And I remember this because I just took a breath and I just started bawling. And I was like, no. Yeah. This is the first time I had said it. Yeah. And she just hugged me. I told her, you know, my mom and dad were splitting up. And I just cried in the hall. And she said, well, she stayed out there with me. She didn't really say anything. And then after I got better, we went back in class, and I don't think she ever talked about it again. But I mean, man, what a pushpin in my brain. And I think about it all the time. I'm like, wow, she intuited that. There's no telling what I was doing, but she took that time to like go way beyond a teacher. She just was a human being that saw another human being needing, I mean, honestly, just love, man. Just love without even saying anything. God makes me want to cry right now because I just think, what a gift, man. And how many teachers are doing that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Absolutely. You know, it goes back to that awareness. I think developing that awareness. There was one day where I was very frustrated because teaching sometimes is not about teaching.
Yeah.
Like you talked about the industry, the different industries. Sometimes it's a machine, right? And the machine doesn't really care about you. You know, you retire, the machine keeps going. You have passion, the machine says there's no place for passion.
Right.
So I just was kind of in my feelings, and it just so worked out that they had a field trip that day. I had a little bit extra time off in the course of a day than I normally would. So I could feel myself like I got to get out of this space. I'm collapsing under the bubble. Like I need to get some fresh air. So I went out, and my home is not too far from the school. So I got in my vehicle and I went home, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to get something to eat. I'm going to, just a different space. Sometimes just changing the scene kind of helps. So I said, I'm going to just sit down and eat at home, and I'm going to go back and finish my day. On the way home, I went in the mailbox. And you got to understand, at this point, I'm just to kind of paint a picture. Some of my frustration was, what's the point?
Sure.
This doesn't really matter. Yeah, this came at a point where there was some notoriety and some celebration for what was being done. But in that moment, in the moments leading up to it, it was just like, you know what? Maybe this is the time. You know, because sometimes they tell you you'll know when your time is up and it's time to just cut ties and move on.
We all have those feelings. No matter what you're doing, it's gonna come, man.
You get those moments.
I've had to get through it a bunch of times.
And I just was thinking, you know what? This is probably the last year.
Yeah.
And I just kind of made up my mind. I was going to go home and think about what that looked like and maybe write a resignation letter because I'm so proactive. I'm like, I'm going to write my resignation letter for next year. You know, I'm a nerd. So I'm like, I'm right. And I go home and 3 letters and some junk mail was in my mailbox. But I noticed they were like handwritten. But you gotta be careful with that stuff because now they ain't got sophisticated. The junk mail, they'll look like handwritten stuff.
Yeah, right.
And they're just
right.
Yeah, I'm like.
And you know, man, if I can digress for a second, that right there to me, I'm in advertising. That to me is the stuff that I just really.
Isn't it terrible?
I can't. It's terrible because it actually jades you towards the real things that are like that. And it's like they're taking and just putting poison on things that you normally would love. I can't stand that stuff.
In this case, it happened. Because I looked at it, gave it no second thought. I said, oh, junk mail. But then I sat down, fixed me something to eat. I'm sitting at the table. And something just said, look at the letters. You know, maybe a bill or something. So I looked, and I noticed, man, these telemarketers, man, they're really good. They got 2 of them that look. This third one look, boy, this is unacceptable, man. How dare they, you know. And I said, no, wait a minute. I think these are real letters. So I opened them up, and it was 3 students who were seniors. None of the 3 were in band anymore. They were asked by their senior English teacher to think of one individual.
Wow.
Pre-K through 12th grade. One teacher, principal, cafeteria worker, custodian. Just one person in the educational field. One, only one, that made the greatest impact in your life. And write them a thank you letter and tell them why. And 3 students wrote me one. None of them are in band.
Wow, man.
Which speaks to everything we said earlier.
Yeah.
One girl, speaking to your point you said earlier, you said, can I think of one instance? One of the letters was from a little girl, and without getting into great detail, she said she was on the verge of doing something, you know, that would have brought great harm to herself.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sure. Yeah.
And she came to school, and it's funny when kids recount something, it's like it takes you back. Like I remember this so vividly. I'd forgotten about it, quote unquote, but then reading it, she says, I came to band one day, and I always meet the students outside. I try to give them their space before we start just getting down to business.
Right.
I think it's important that they've been told to sit down and shut up and all this other stuff. I want to give them a little bit of time to just be.
Wade in, man. Yeah, we don't do anything else that way.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, why just throw somebody in cold water?
Let them get a little bathroom break, water. Let them just kind of, sometimes they don't even see their friends all day because they're in different classes. So I give them like 2 minutes. It's not a lot of time, but I give them a couple minutes just to be silly or just do what they got to do. And, but when we come in, then it's, you know, it's business time, you know. And I always meet them outside. She said, I walked in, she said, I was late. And here's the thing about the kids, it's so funny. We set such a standard. When she says late, she was like 10 seconds late to class, okay?
Right. It wasn't like, oh man, I'm coming in here 20, 15 minutes after you started. So I'm closing the door,
you know, and she's walking. And she thought I was going to fuss at her, I guess. I don't know. And I looked at her and I said, I see you. And to this day, I don't know why I said, I see you as opposed to good morning or hello. But I said, I see you. And then she looked, and I said, I'm not going to say her name, but I always call her Miss or Mr.
Yeah, right.
Make up a name, Smith.
I've heard you do that,
said, you know, Miss Smith, I see you. And I just smiled at her. Again, I remember this now. In the moment, I don't know why I said it that way. And I could see her, like it just kind of lifted, whatever that was. And she came in, we never discussed it. I need you to understand, she never said anything about that. I didn't see anything. Like even the moment you recounted, there was a moment where the teacher would have known, okay, this was for a reason. I see my man's going through something.
Right.
I never saw anything in her. She said in that letter, she says, I felt like no one saw me. I literally was thinking, no, I felt like I was invisible and I was getting ready to do something.
Man.
He said, when I came to your class, you said, I see you. And she said, I never forgot that. In any moment where I felt invisible, I always knew Mr. Smith saw something in me.
You know what, man? I hear you tell that story, and I don't know what you believe. I mean, we can talk about that too, because I think it's important to just know where things come from. When I hear that story, I mean, I believe in God.
Yeah,
I believe there's a creator, and there's intelligence behind everything.
Yeah, man.
And when I hear you say that, I think, man, that's the moment when that's the voice of God, man, speaking to that kid. She needed that. You didn't know it. It's just, you can't tell me why you said that instead of good morning, just like you said. And it changed everything, man. Like a hinge.
Yeah.
Like her life hinged on that.
Changes her life. That could possibly change her children's life.
It changes infinitum, man, like all the way down through history. We don't know. Yeah, that I have a moment like that, and I guess it's school related, but it just, as you were telling me that, I was like, oh yeah, I've got a guy. Something happened to me like that when I was in high school. I used to hate to run track, man. I hated running. Oh God, I still really don't love it. I mean, I'll do it, but back then I could not run. And I had this friend, we went through, I don't know if we went to elementary school together, but went through junior high together, and then we're in high school, and he wasn't really in shape either. But they would make us run track, and man, I would just huff and puff. I mean, you know, that feeling your lungs are going to explode. And we were running track, and they would always just fuss at us, man, if we didn't run. And I was like, I can't run, man. I mean, I got to walk, you know. I had that in my head, like they're screaming at me, and they ain't making me want to run. And my friend, he ran around me a couple of times, and every time he'd go, come on, man, come on. But then he slowed down to kind of walk run, and he said to me, you don't have to run fast, you just have to run. And at that moment, I'm going, okay, well, that's good advice about running. And so I did. I just kind of did what he was doing, and he kind of paced me, and then I was like, okay, and they quit fussing at me, and I made it through. Well, probably 2 months later, he got hit by a car and was killed. Oh, wow. And man, it was like those words just, probably one of the last things that he had said to me. And it wasn't, I don't know if it was because he died that it made that more pointed and just so important. But do you know how many times I have found a way to apply those words to so many things? Like when I feel like I'm just beat, I can't do this, or I want to quit something, it's like, hold on, you don't have to quit, man. Now it's like I get this big long thing, it's like I hear his voice, and all I hear him saying is, you don't have to run fast, you just got to run. And man, when I hear it, I'm like, yeah, and I start kind of having this little angel on my shoulder that's kind of pepping me up, just going, yeah, man, all you got to do is just take it slow, you can get through it. Just do like you said about your rocks, you know, do this thing and do that thing, and then eventually, you know, you don't have to run fast, you're going to get there. And I find myself giving that same piece of advice to my own children whenever they feel overwhelmed. You know, it's like just one thing at a time, and it's the same lesson you started out with. I mean, but again, I equate that to, in that moment, that was the voice of God coming out of his mouth, and you know, it had more meaning than what he was. He didn't think that, or maybe he did. I don't know. I can't ask him. But the meaning for me was just huge, you know. So that's. I want to ask you. You know, I mean, did you have something? I mean, to me. That's why I asked you to come on this show, because I see you and I think good person. That's what I think. You know, man. I mean, God, dude, even just saying it out loud, I can feel my heart, my eyes just fill up with water, because I go, we need to celebrate it so bad in this world, man. Like when you meet somebody good, let them know. Don't wait. Show them, tell them, hey, I believe in what you're saying. When you're talking, the things you're doing, I think you're a good person. It's so easy to go, oh, that person's terrible, or comments and backbiting and gossiping and just talking bad about people, and man, we just don't go, man, me tell you what you did good.
Yeah.
And so I think about good people and all the different good people that I meet, and I go, so what was it? Because, I mean, there's a difference. And, I mean, I'm not the one to judge by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, none of us really are. I mean, I guess I could say I do some good, but I do some bad too, or I have my failings. We all do. Sure. But I always ask, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you, is like, what is it? Like, are there key moments in your life that you can go, oh, in this moment, when I was this age or in this place, something changed? Or do you just go, oh, I've always been this guy? Or was there pivotal things that you can just go, oh, yeah, this was a big one for me, and I know a hinge. I mean, I hate to keep coming back to that word, but where something bent and something moved and you said, did something wake up in you, or were you just you always?
I have never been asked that question, and that's a great question. I don't know that I can answer it because in order to answer it in the way that I think is presented goes against how I see things. I see life like music.
Yeah.
And I tell especially when you're trying to teach kids how to really read music. They got some kids, I call them button pushers. Yeah. I tell the kids, don't be a button pusher. Don't just play the song because you heard it played 100 times over, and you can play Mary Had a Little Lamb, but when given music to read for the first time, we find out you're not literate.
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
So I'm always pushing them to be able to read anything. And when you're reading music, it's progressive. You're always pushing forward. You enjoy the moment, but it's the next moment.
Yeah.
I ran track and I was pretty good at it. I enjoyed it. I loved it.
You didn't need a buddy to tell you.
I loved it. I was the one telling other, but hey, let's go.
You weren't like, you weren't giving that soft advice. He's like, come on, man, push it.
Let's go, man. and for me, the one rule of track, if there is one, don't look back.
Don't look back.
You can't. The moment you look back, you lose. Because it slows you down. It's just inherent. Like if you turn around, you're gonna lose the momentum. I don't really believe in momentum per se, but you know what I mean. Momentum from physical momentum.
Yeah,
as far as your body and the action and everything. But so for me, when I play, it's kind of the same way. We're playing forward. We're playing forward in the moment, but we're playing forward. So, to answer your question, I don't know that it's any one moment in the past as much as it is every day. The word be is so big for me. I don't think it's a coincidence we're called human beings.
Ah, yeah.
Not human doings or whatever.
Right.
Like, wow, why is it human beings?
And I have never thought of that before. Yeah.
So Shakespeare asked the question, to be or not to be. That's the question. And I ask kids this question all the time. In the form of a knock-knock joke. I say, knock, knock. They say, who's there? I am.
I am who?
That's the question.
I am who? Man, God, what a day. Talk about finding the good. I had this conversation with my wife at lunch, and I told her, I said, man, we have got to take longer lunches because some of these conversations they're just heavy. I mean, that was it. I said, I talk to a lot of people, and one of my favorite questions is, who are you?
Yeah.
Really, who are you?
Not what you do.
Not what you do, but who are you? When all that's not around, who are you?
People can't answer that.
They can't. You're right.
And a big part of that is because our being, I believe, is set from a higher place. And it's not until we let go. And it occurred to me this person I know, they'd always say, bro, you're blessed. You're blessed. And sometimes I get tired of hearing it because I didn't feel very blessed in the moment. But they'd always say, you're blessed. And somebody says something enough to you, it kind of sticks. And it occurred to me one day, I'm looking at the word blessed, and the word blessed actually says be less.
Be less.
Be less. And I think that when you put yourself in a position to just say, you know what, I didn't create the universe, I didn't put this earth into motion, I didn't do any of this stuff, let me just kind of sit back. And that occurred to me about a week ago. I was trying to fix something on my instrument, on the mouthpiece, and it required I use some super glue. Don't try this at home, saxophone players, but it's a long story. I had to use some super glue, but the super glue wasn't acting quick enough for me. Like it wasn't the high grade. Like I like the Gorilla Glue. Okay?
I got you. Yeah,
and this stuff, I'm busy. I need like
Gorilla Glue if you're listening.
Yeah, Gorilla Glue. We love
Send
you.
us some Gorilla Glue.
And the tape too. We love you. So it wasn't working, and I decided I'm gonna leave school. I had an off period. I'm gonna run to Walgreens because I'm sure they got some Gorilla Glue, and I'm literally holding the part of the horn as I'm driving, because I've already started the process. I don't want to lose it and to drop. And I get out of Walgreens. I'm walking into Walgreens like a crazy person with this piece of this horn, the mouthpiece, and I'm holding it and I'm looking for Gorilla Glue like a crazy person. There was no Gorilla Glue in there.
Huh.
But what happened was I got about on the third or so aisle, and I began to realize it had taken hold.
While you were looking for
While I was looking for the stuff. And taking hold well. Like like I fooled around it a couple days ago. It's not moving, it's there. And it got me to thinking. That was also at a point where I was trying to do a lot of stuff. And it occurred to me, sometimes we just gotta sit still and let it be.
Yeah, man.
And so now I said all that to answer your question. What I try to do daily, I'm not perfect at it, but what I try to do is I have a thing where I set my to-be list.
To-be list.
And my to-be list, because, the great philosopher Shakespeare said that whole to-be or not-to-be thing. My to-be list is discovering the sound. And we've kind of talked about this in the past where I think everybody has a sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my saxophone.
Right.
But everybody has that thing. You spoke to it earlier. When you, having known me and we've talked a little bit and you've seen me, I don't think my saxophone is the first thing you think of now.
Oh, no.
It's
Not
down on the list. Like it's a nice bonus, or like we say in Louisiana, lanyap. That's a good little bonus. But you don't think of that first and foremost.
No.
It doesn't define.
It's
what
funny
I do.
that you say that because it kind of gets into what I do. I mean, I don't want to stop you too.
Yeah,
don't
no,
let me
no.
derail you because I want to hear what you're saying. But it's like, it's almost like it's your brand.
Yeah.
And I get that. And when I tell people, oh, Mickey Smith, they're like, oh, the saxophone player. You're right. Because, I mean, it's the same thing with us. Oh, Oran, the guy, the advertising guy, oh, he does logos. And I'm like, golly, that is just not, I do that, but that's not who I be. You know what I'm saying, man?
That's just the hook.
Yeah.
That's just the
I do that, but that's not who I be.
That's it.
Now how can I take who I be and put that in what I do? All right, then we got something. But if those two things are separate, I don't want, honestly, to be honest, as I get older, I become less interested in it, man. I'm like, man, I don't want to have to. And I get into something else I want to ask you about. But I mean, let me derail you. You was on the track because
every morning I set my to-be list by using my sound acronym. And I have a method I call Sound 180 that I work with teachers with.
Okay.
And everything. And we talk about how sound is actually a quadrant.
Okay.
S stands for see yourself beyond yourself. So every day I write down, how am I going to be intentional? Because intentionalness and consistency is the formula for success. If you're intentional and you're consistent about what you do, it will become.
Right on.
That's all we've been talking about here lately.
That's right.
So if I consistently make a point to be intentional about seeing myself beyond myself, what does that mean? Seeing yourself beyond yourself. That was the moment where I said, I see you.
Yeah.
What that little girl doesn't know is that day I was sick.
Right.
But
she didn't.
It wasn't for her to know. That's not her problem. That's not what she came to school for.
Right.
And I have to remember that when they come to me, that some of them have been waiting all day to be. It's just like when we go see these guys play, like when Michael Jordan got the flu. I respect him. He may be a terrible individual, but I have him in such high esteem from a basketball standpoint because I see guys, they sit out the last 10 games of the season because they don't want to pull a muscle. My man had the flu. He put it all on the line. People paid their last dollar to come get that $500 ticket, and you left feeling like you got everything you hoped to get. And I feel like on some level, I'm the kid's Jordan.
Yeah,
they've been waiting
right.
all day. And you know how it is. Even today, when you think about your teacher, they're larger than life. And we forget that. We're phenomenal, but phenomenal's not fair. Sometimes to be phenomenal, you can't walk the same walk other people walk. You have to be something greater, and you have to have a greater perspective. So seeing myself beyond myself means putting my own needs aside, just as Christ would have.
That's right. That's where I'm kind of getting to with you. That was the point I wanted to kind of get to was, at some point, when you start to see, my wife and I were talking about, so I can get confused in this because it can get a little murky in what I'm trying to say. But see, I'm a believer that there is a mystical body of Christ, right? That, and some people, when you have that conversation, like, I don't, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, well, what I mean is you lose yourself in this body. It's all the parts, all of us, our hearts all working together to a greater good, the good news, we join his body. Well, you kind of have to lose yourself to become that. But at the same time, this individual loves you particularly, individually, for all that you are and all that you aren't, just as you are. So it's like there's the selfless, and then there's the self, and at the same, it's a mystery, man. I go, it doesn't have to be an answer to this, because you can end up in this sort of infinite loop of going, well, this one thing leads back to this thing, and it's like a time paradox or something. And the more I talked about it, I said, man, this can get kind of confusing, but what I've come to learn for me is like, I love the mystery of that. I love the mystery that me particularly, as I am, my thoughts, my talents, my whatever I am, all that my life's made me up to be, and wherever I'm heading, that matters.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, all that needs to be peeled away to get to who I be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can be in community with this mystical body. So how do you be you, but then not be you? It's something I struggle with, to be honest with you, because I get sometimes I think they're two halves. And I'm slowly beginning to learn that somewhere who I am supposed to be, just like who I think a lot of us are, is somewhere in the middle of there. It's in that that mystery spot. We don't know what it is, don't know how to explain it, but it's some kind of weird synergy between those two places. And I didn't accept that for a long time. For a long time, I felt like there was a constantly having to die to myself.
Yeah.
But then I would get sucked into sort of leadership positions, or things where I had to stand up, or things where I was the only one who had what it took to do this particular thing. And I was like, but this isn't who I want to be, but it's who I have to or need to be to do this good thing.
Band teaches us so much. Music teaches us so much. In an excellent musical setting, you're responsible for creating the sound. But your sound has to blend. Your sound cannot overshadow others. Matter of fact, when we play, the simplest way I can explain balance in the course of an ensemble, orchestra, band, whatever, choir, is if you can't hear the person next to you, you're playing too loud. So you have to come back down. So even in that, you are, quote unquote, seeing or hearing yourself beyond yourself. Because by hearing somebody else, you can see how your sound fits into what they're doing. And there was a movie a while back called Drumline, and the band director would always say, one band, one sound. And that's what I think this thing called humanity is. It's one band, one sound. And the times where we live and we perform less than our best is when we're overperforming.
So why do you think we have a problem with that? Because I agree with everything you just said. Why do you think human beings have a problem blending in other sounds?
We like the sound of our own voice.
We like this. Well, why do we do that? Why is that? What is that?
It's familiar. It's pleasing.
Familiar.
It doesn't challenge you.
It's like it's self-gratifying.
Absolutely. Well, we all know vegetables are good for us, but few people like them.
Yeah.
Growing up, you like chocolate. You like chocolate ice cream. You like butter pecan. And left to his own device, we're like children. That's why he's the father. Left to our own device, we would eat. Left to my own device, if I was a child, I would eat Miss Johnny's pecan pralines for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Right. But then I'd end up in urgent care somewhere. Right. Yeah. So our own voice is sweet, but it's toxic.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's I'm all about exploring boundaries and people finding themselves, and because I think that's where new creativity will lead sometimes. It wants to be born in the world, and it wants to find things in you that you haven't discovered, and it wants to push the boundaries and the fences. But then at the same time, this multi-dimensional creator also sets boundaries and fences. And I heard this priest say it, and I'm probably going to butcher what he said, but he said, imagine some children who are playing ball, but they're on the edge of a ravine. He said they will play away from the edge of that ravine, and they'll be scared to where they throw, and they're always watching, don't run too far. He said, so they're not really playing. There's no joy in it, maybe a little, but they're aware that ravine's over there. He said, but put a fence up, and then they can actually play. Then they're free to play and be. And I said, I never really thought of boundaries that way. We hear boundary and we hear, border, or we hear anything like that, and rules. And we start to think, oh, rules are bad. All rules are bad. We just have this idea that any kind of thing that restricts you is bad. But I was like, I never considered that maybe there are some things that I would guess maybe divinely just rules that are there not in an aggressive way. They're actually there to keep us safe.
Not to limit you, but it's to
so we can enjoy being human beings and each other, But I think I find we as people sometimes put boundaries up where they don't need to be too, just because, like you said, it's familiar. We want to stick to the familiar.
Whether it's self-discovery or whether it's boundary creation, everything needs to be channeled through the one who created everything. Yeah. And when it doesn't flow through that, then it's set up for failure.
That's something I've thought about a lot. I have some people that are close to me who don't have any kind of, and maybe not even.
And I didn't say religion.
Right. Yeah. No foundation. The foundation is just that things just are, and there's no reason for it, and there's nothing but just matter, and doesn't matter where it came from. And I feel like for me. And I've contemplated those things just because I want to understand, And I do feel like I understand, but for me, and maybe just the way I'm wired, it feels empty.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. That takes a lot more faith.
Yeah.
Than the person who has faith, because you're literally telling me that everything operates the way that nothing. I'll put it a different way. Everything operates the way that no thing operates, because you're in this business right now. A client comes in and you just throw the components on the table.
Right.
Never will the project come together.
Right.
We can go up to Detroit right now to GM, stop the assembly line. Parts ain't gonna put something intelligent has to put that together.
For me, a lot of times that started dawning on me early when I was a younger man, and it came really from going to the doctor. I remember I had to go to the ear, had a lot of ear problems, but I remember going to the doctor when I was a kid with my mother constantly for ear infections, and I would see these charts of like an eye or the lungs, and I remember looking at, I think it was lungs, if I'm not mistaken. I went, that looks like a tree. And I kind of would stare at it, and I was like, yeah, it looks like a drawing of a tree. And then I started looking at veins, and then as I got older, I would start to, now it's a lot of Fibonacci patterns and all that. And that was it for me. I wasn't, I would say, even a Christian at that point, but it was just, I was sold that there's an artist at work, because I could look at a Picasso and then see another Picasso and go, oh, that's a Picasso. I could look at Van Gogh's self-portrait and then look at Starry Night and then look at Sunflower and go, that's Van Gogh, without having to see his signature. And so it was easy to go, oh, that dragonfly's wing looks like the veins in my hand, or the pattern in this seashell looks like the swirl of the water going down the drain, or a galaxy, or a hurricane, or any number of things. I mean, it just goes on and on. And so it wasn't hard. I went, oh, this is just the artist. I mean, this is the artist's work, and what an artist. That's very easy. Yeah. And I try to point that out sometimes to, like, my kids or people who maybe are struggling with that idea. I just don't see chaos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even in chaos, sometimes I go, it just looks like chaos because I'm up close. I guarantee you, if I got far enough back,
That's it.
it's not chaos. I mean, it looks chaotic right now. Sometimes our world looks chaotic, But I guarantee you, you get back far enough, it doesn't look so chaotic.
Yeah.
It's perspective.
It's perspective and awareness. A turtle and a giraffe can be in the same spot and see something totally different.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, getting back to that moment, I think that was interesting what you said. So you don't have like a key moment or key moments. You just kind of, they come every day. You're looking for them every day. You're not getting up going, oh, what's my key moment today?
I told my daughter this a couple days ago. I told her, I said, you're attractive. And she thought, oh, he's just being a dad, doubting dad. I said, no, you're attractive. I believe that whatever you are, that's what you draw to some extent, not always. And I don't want to put anything, if somebody's had something bad to them, that doesn't always mean that you've brought on the bad. But I'm looking at the totality of it. In the totality of things, we often draw in what it is we put out.
Yeah.
You're attractive. So I look at it like this. I'm not worried about the to-do list. I'll get to it. I don't check my emails first thing in the morning. I dictate my narrative. What is it that I want to be? What is the sound that I want to create? We talked about see yourself beyond yourself. Operate in optimism and excellence every day. What am I going to do intentionally to do that? To be that, excuse me. How am I going to be exceptional in the eyes of these people that I've been entrusted to lead? Utilize all available resources every day. I may not have everything I need, but I got everything that I need. I got everything I need. I just had an experience today, not going to go into detail. I am blown away. I've been given an opportunity to do something. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't have what it took financially to do it. I don't have it. I don't have the credentials to do what's about to be done. But for some reason, I'm doing it. And when asked about it, one of the individuals who was charged with it said, it's because, basically, I'm paraphrasing, we've seen you. You're a good steward with what you've got. So therefore, we can entrust you with this opportunity, utilizing all available resources. Man, that sure beats sitting around complaining about what I didn't have.
Yeah.
Just doing what I was supposed to do, being who I was supposed to be, brought the opportunity. Nourishing relationships, moments like this,
right.
Sitting down with my students, understanding that I'm not just there to teach them, but I'm also there to pour into them. And at the same time, they probably pour into me as much as I pour into them.
Sure.
I leave away going, I get it. Because, see, kids get it. They don't have, the radar is clean. Like, they can pick up on, they're very, like when my little boy, he's still at that age, and we've spoken about this in the past too. I don't have a dog, I don't have a pet. But if I had a pet, I'd probably look at my pet and see how he responds to people. But I do look at my 9-year-old. If he dug you, man, you good people. Like when he gave you the dap up, I said, okay.
Hey, man, I'm gonna tell you something. I love kids like that. That's something I love. Just people like that. Mm-hmm. Honestly, there's nothing better than somebody that just goes, I just want to hug you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just kids, man. I mean, I think that's something we lack as adults so often. It's like, can I just love you? I mean, I talk about that a lot. I probably probably look like a loving person. I think sometimes people have a misperception. We base so much on what we see and not getting to know somebody. But man, that's honestly, truly, when I really think about it, that's when I'm happiest. Mm-hmm. It's just when I don't know. It's like I said, it's a feeling, man. And, I get told by people, well, you can't trust your feelings. You need to trust what you know and what you've been told. If you go by feelings, you're going to have a lot of problems. And I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I'm just like, I'm kind of done with. I told somebody a couple of months ago, I said, I think maybe it's my age, and maybe I'm just tired of living like that, but I'm tired of going, well, sometimes you got to be violent to get something done. I'm done with that. I'm just through with that. Sometimes you got to say something mean to get something done. Okay, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going, look, I'm 44 years old. I don't know how much of my life I've got left. If I'm healthy or if I don't have a tragedy. Look, man, I got hit by a car. Yeah. I think I told you a couple of years ago. could have died that day, and I didn't die. And so what am I going to do with that? Could have been it. My wife could have been planning a funeral. She was sleeping in bed, and that could have been somebody knocking on her door telling her husband was dead. Well, that could still happen. I mean, why am I going to waste my life, what's left, living on the world's terms? I don't want to do it, man. I just want to go, hey, who are you? Do you need some love? I mean, that sounds so rudimentary to some people, but man, I mean, I am finding the more conversations like this I have, man, people want, we're starving for it, man.
We got to go back to where, from a music standpoint, I have to retool the thinking. Like when I get them, I have to teach them how to breathe. I have to teach them how to breathe properly to get the sound out on the wind instrument. And as we're talking, we begin to understand that babies get it right. Like we don't come here with a lot of bad physical habits.
Right.
Like we breathe most naturally when we're baby. Like when we're learning how to walk, babies have great posture.
Yeah.
Like watch a baby when they're trying to. My goddaughter, she's a little over a year old, and she sits like she's the queen of England. I mean, she's got the posture down pat. But then as time goes on and gravity gets a little stronger and we get a little weaker, things start to break down. Habits start coming into place. And I notice when we look at children, I have the luxury of having an elementary school adjacent to the middle school. Man, if I go on the elementary school, oh man, 10 hugs, easy. They coming up, I love you.
Yeah.
Like you don't even know my name. I saw you yesterday. You taught my cousin, doesn't even know my name. You taught my sister, I love you. Can I have a hug? And I'm like, oh, sure, and they hug your little leg or whatever, and you walk away and you feel so good. And a couple days ago I did it. I freaked out a bunch of teachers. I was like, and I'm not much of a hugger. I'm growing into it, man. But I said, you know what? I don't know why that morning I just went to all the teachers. I said, we don't do it enough. I said, no. I said, no funny business. I said, I'm not being weird because I know you can't just approach everybody like that.
Right.
I said, it's all love. I said, if you don't mind, would you like a hug? And I gave him a hug, and it just, you could see everything just shifted. It changed the whole atmosphere. And that's why I say kids teach so much. So I think a lot of times the answers are always there. We've just gotten away from them. That's why I say it's always good to come back to that main thing. What's the main thing? And for me, the main thing is establishing that be. Not get so consumed in the consumption, not to get so driven by the to-do, but what are you trying? Not even trying. What were you made to be? What were you made to be? And that only comes, I think, with quiet time to self, unplugging, turning down the noise. Not all the time. I'm not saying you got to be a monk, but even a computer has to shut down. Even a cell phone has to reboot. It has to upgrade or whatever. You have to have those times where you recharge. And I think part of what we feel in today's culture is it's a constant. It's a 24/7.
Yeah.
It never shuts down.
Well, man,
the phone's on even when you sleep. You've got to turn down that noise so you can discover your. Now I'm gonna say that and I'm gonna check my phone.
Well, no, I know, I understand because look, it's something I wanted to ask you about. I mean, I look at you and I go, man, you're everywhere, right? You got stuff going on. I mean, even when we were doing your video interviews, for the Grammys, I could tell you're busy, man. You got a lot of things, and I hate that word busy because that's something that we say. It's almost become a good thing. I notice when I go get my hair cut, or when I do get in a moment where it's like there ain't a lot going on, and that's really one of those moments is when I'm getting a haircut. It's kind of for a few minutes I'm just sitting in a chair, And for a couple of years, I would catch myself, and it's so how's things been? You been busy? Yeah, I've been busy. And we say it like it's a good thing. And I think what a lot of people mean is, you own a business. Is your business good? Is your business busy? And then there's another thing that I've heard a lot of people say to me, and I think I hear a lot of business people say, and that kind of, I just think about it a lot. And it's like, you been busy? Oh, yeah. And you say it with that tone like, oh, my gosh, yeah. Well, that's a good thing. It could be worse. It could be the other direction. And I get it. Mm-hmm. I do. It's not that I don't want business. But do I want to be busy?
There's a difference.
Do you know what I
between
mean?
Business and busyness.
Yeah, busyness, because some of the tasks that we fill our day with are just busyness, and you're going, man, I like to just sit sometimes and do nothing. I mean, I like to drink a cup of coffee. I don't need a book. I just want to sit and let my mind settle. You know, it's another thing from the Tao Te Ching. I mean, again, it was like, can you stand still and let the water become clear all by itself? You know, we think we have to do something to get clear or to do something to calm down. I mean, it's like, oh, if you do these techniques, you'll get a clear mind. Or if you do these techniques, you'll reach enlightenment. Do something. It goes back to what you're saying. And really, what the Tao Te Ching was saying is just, can you do that? Yeah. Let the water become clear all by itself and let the mud just, it will. You don't have to do anything. Mm-hmm. But we get so busy, man. And the reason I say it like that is because I wonder, someone like you, I mean, full of insight, you're doing good things. It's not hard to find the good, but you do have a lot going on. How do you manage all of that? I mean, is that, because I use a word a lot of times because I use it for myself, and I don't know if it applies to you. I call it the show. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, a lot of times, I might have to put on the show 3 or 4 times a day.
Yeah.
And honestly, if I'm being honest, I mean, I could say it's not true, but it is. I'm kind of having to muster up what people expect from me. When I go to a meeting or when I've got to do a big presentation, I got to muster up the right words. I got to put on the show. And I'm not saying it's not 100% me. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not a farce, but deep down,
sure.
I would much rather not be doing that and just have things and go, yeah, let me just be a little more me, a little more relaxed in myself. And that might just be me. Maybe I'm the only one putting on the show, but I wonder sometimes.
No, I totally get that.
Do you get that? I mean,
I think for me, and I know I sound like a broken record, but it comes back to the being.
Yeah. Because
once I know what it is I'm being, then I plug that in to what I'm doing. I told a group of students about a month ago, you know, they were talking about professions. And the school brought me in to talk with them about helping them, you know, find their calling and their, you know, because, you know, obviously if you know what your profession may be, it may help you academically because you kind of see where this is going, you know. And I shared with them, I said, it's your purpose and your passion that should dictate the position, and not vice versa. So I challenged them. I said, take out a piece of paper. I want to find your 10. We're going to win with 10. Find the 10 things. If somebody walks up, you spoke some things toward me, you know, obviously there's some adjectives. There's some descriptive words where if somebody said, you know, Mickey Smith, oh yeah, you said it, saxophone wouldn't even be number 1. There's some other words that would go there. So my question is, you know, just role playing, whatever, if you were there, I would ask you, what are the 10 things that define you when we talk about purpose and passion? What do people see? What do you think people see when they see you? You know, and at different points of your life, it's different. There was a point in my life, if somebody saw me, they would have saw, man, he's going to the NBA. He's a great No, I mean, like, when I was a kid, I was killing them on the basketball court. They just knew. I'm going to hang out with Michael Jordan, you know? That season is past in my life. Yeah. But at one point in my life, those were things, or art, visual art. There was a time, man, I didn't even think about music. I just drew and I painted and I did all this stuff. And they're just different points. Every point of your life, I think, has certain sounds, quote unquote, that you're emanating. So I have them write down those things. Maybe it's happy. Maybe it's you have a big heart. Maybe it's you're a hard worker. Maybe you love research. Maybe you like animals. I don't know. Whatever that thing is, you write down like quick as you can. Think of the things that like
the 10 things. Like if you had to put them down right now, what are they?
And then once you look at those things, that's your northern star. That's your compass, because now you're gonna find that position where those purposes and those passions can be aligned, so you're not living a lie.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's where the success comes from. You may not pay a lot, but it's priceless.
You know, it makes you wonder how many of us, and I'd wager it's probably a lot, that are living some kind of lie to some degree.
The system is
know?
not built for that. The machine is a consumer, and I don't want to get on that rant because
me either.
I got to go to church, but I don't even want to get on that rant.
Yeah, that'll take you down in a hole for sure. I get that.
That whole thing, it doesn't. The machine doesn't care about you. So we can't look to the machine, and whatever you want to call the machine, if you want to call it whatever. The machine is not going to have your best interests at heart. That's why it always said, and it's still true, it takes a village to raise a child. It doesn't take an economic system or a governmental system or any kind of institution to raise a child. It never said it takes an institution to raise a child. It doesn't even take a school. It takes a village. Why? Because grandma loves you.
Right.
Mom loves you. There's somebody in the village. Maybe it's Uncle Bobo. Maybe it's the neighbor. I don't know. It's somebody. Maybe it's that teacher that saw you in that moment. That village can see where your heart is, and they can be the ones to direct you, and they can be the ones to show you, hey, this is who you are. This is what you should be. Have you considered? That's what somebody did for me. Nobody in my family went to college. We were just planning on going to high school graduation, and good luck, son.
Yeah.
But the counselor who had just took a job there would hear me playing in the auditorium. I was senior. I could have went home, but I had nothing to go home to. So I just stayed at school and I practiced in the auditorium, never realizing that the sounds I was making were going into the front office, and they were talking about me in the front office.
Somebody knew. Somebody sees it. That goes back to what we've been talking about this whole time. It takes relationship, man. I mean, it's
nourishing that relationship,
caring about somebody that you have no reason to care about. They heard you and they thought, hey, and somebody reached out, and it makes a difference.
So even in kind of closing with it, it comes back to the sound, seeing yourself beyond yourself, operating that optimism and excellence, drawing that inspiration, that faith, that strength from something, because you can't do anything in and of yourself. Utilizing all available resources. How you see the world is how you see the world. And you said it yourself. I said it a few days ago. I can't believe half of what I see, so I'm choosing to believe what I don't see. Yeah. Faith don't make sense. Mystery, man. I can't operate in the logic right now. Logic ain't working. Yeah, I don't need to know everything about that. I think some people want to be smart theologians and want to have a book to go by and know everything about, this and that. And I just go, that's the word, this and that, man. I just need him to be a fence.
Yeah.
So I can be what I need to be.
Yeah.
That's why there's an old song we used to sing, Jesus be a fence. And that picture you painted brings a whole nother perspective to it. I used to think of as the fence as it's keeping out the evil and the bad. Yeah. But sometimes it's just allowing me to be.
Well, man, it's funny that you say that. Like, and I won't get off because I want to ask you about your big announcement.
Okay.
But there's this thing that went around the internet, how these things go around, and it was this saying, or somebody had posted it, I don't know, but it was like kind of getting off into this whole the border wall and building a wall and the conflicts at the border and all this stuff that's been in the news, is terrible stuff. And it said, heaven has a fence around it, and heaven has gates. And I was like, man, is that's where we're at, man? Like, golly, it just stung my heart. And I was like, and it was getting shared like it was a good thing. It was almost like trying to support our agenda as people. I said, man, we want heaven to look like this place.
And you know what? There's truth to it. It has a gate, but it has a great gatekeeper.
Right. And, like what you said, that fence is not. Yeah. It's not like a moat around the castle, man. I mean, it's different. It's I would say more like a cocoon,
Exactly. And
so you can become something.
And I don't know if we're qualified to be gatekeepers.
Oh, I think ultimately, as hard as we try, we're still just going to be terrible at it. I mean, I do this little event, and I call it a prayer event once a month. And one of the things I would say to people is, so imagine that your heart is the chapel and that there's a door on it. What does that door look like? Is it closed? If somebody comes up to the chapel that's in your heart, is it closed? Is it, you got to knock? Do they look to see if anybody's in there and then they walk away? Or is the door just ajar enough for them to peek inside, Or not just for them, but for you too. Because if it's shut, nothing can come in or out, man. We got to kind of just get just a little crack. for things to go in and out, and you might find you just want to open that door all the way. You know.
Absolutely.
Well, look, I want to hear about your big announcement. And the reason I really want to hear about it, mainly because you deserve it, but also because I got to work with you on your videos, which was where I really got to know you more so than the previous project that we worked on.
Yeah, man, that was a wonderful opportunity.
So what's going
for
on?
me as well. So I definitely want to start by saying thank you for making that time, because even as we talk today, we realize how busy life is.
Yeah.
And for me, that meant a lot, because without your help, there was no way I could have shared it, with with that heart and that. And I've had some folks in the past that have tried to help me convey, but it's amazing. There's a gift and there's a power in ability to share story, and not just any story. You possessed an ability to, much like my instrument. I love this particular saxophone I have because it doesn't get in the way. Whatever I feel and think, this saxophone allows me to express that. Whereas some horns, I feel like it changes. It clouds what I'm saying. It's still good, but it's not me. It's like that old story about David and Saul's armor. It's like David, he probably could have killed Goliath. He probably could have. But that wasn't him. He had to go with the slingshot,
Right,
and I feel
right.
like, bro, we knocked it out, man. We had the slingshot. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, I'm an educator in the area, and I had an opportunity to be nominated for a national award, and it's for the Grammys. But this is different. Like the Grammys, normally for music, there's categories. So there's not like Bruno Mars, he ain't going against everybody. You know what I mean? Like he's just going against the other three guys in his category, right?
Right.
But if you can imagine one Grammy Award where like all the music people are just battling it out for like one.
Right.
Like that's insane.
Battle
that's crazy.
Royale.
Yeah. And that's what this is.
This is all over the country, right?
All over the
every
country.
state.
No grade divisions. There's college, high school, middle. It's just a free for all.
So junior high band director, high school band director.
Miss Smithson's pre-K music class versus Professor Johnson's Juilliard chamber
That's
ensemble.
really, and that really does kind of even the playing field. Puts people in there that maybe wouldn't have got in there. Okay.
Incredible amounts. Thousands of people are in this process. I think it's something like 5,000 it starts out with. They whittle it down. This is a year-long process. Nominations happen in February, March. They whittle it down to a couple of thousand, I think, in April.
Wow.
Then when
next April, couple thousand.
And then so this past April it was a couple thousand, and then when we met, I had just received notification, I think in May, that it was 222.
Wow.
And I was still in it. That's the quarterfinals. And that's when we met and we talked. And like I said, you were gracious enough. You put together the video package.
Well, hey, look, man.
It was fun.
Good content, though.
It was fun, man.
You had the right thing to say. You did it. Your kids did it, too.
Well, it was fun. That was a cool experience, just even going out there. And that's one thing I don't even know how that could be shared, but I think it was so cool. We went out there with no script. We went out there with no agenda. We just went out to the park, and it just so happened some of the students I taught just happened to show up.
Man, that day at the park. That was,
powerful.
if you want to call something serendipity,
Yeah.
that's in those moments right there where you're going, how'd that happen?
And
that was awesome. They were some of the best ones.
They were some of the best ones.
Yeah.
And it just felt good, And I don't think you could have scripted or planned that. That's why I say just be. We couldn't have done.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that if you tried. You just got to be. So we submitted it, and I had shared with you. It'd be a while before we knew.
Right.
And just found out. Made the semifinals.
So how many?
25.
Top 25
in the nation.
In the nation. And it started out as how many?
I think 5,000.
5,000. So you're in the top 25. So the chance. So now what? What's next? So you're making this announcement this weekend.
Yes, I'm gonna make it as soon as they. I'm hoping that they'll release this. They'll remove the embargo from this information next couple days.
Okay.
And if they do that, then I can announce it at a nice event that I have this weekend. And if not, it'll definitely be the following week. It could be any day. They may have sent an email already,
And you're going to let me know.
Oh, absolutely. And from this point, it's my understanding that for the first time ever, they're going to recognize the 25.
Oh, wow.
Nationally. So
Okay.
I don't know what that's going to
So
look
that
like.
hasn't happened yet.
No, it
Okay.
wasn't until the top 10, which I
Okay.
made previously. And in December, I would imagine they'll probably do top 10. And then in January, at the end, they announce who the winner is, and they pick one person.
Okay,
to
so
go
that's
Grammys.
the next phase. This after this 25,
Yeah,
it's
10.
1. Okay.
Well, they do
No,
10.
10, then, okay.
Which I kind of get a feeling they probably know who the one is when they pick
You think
10.
at this
I don't
point?
know.
Yeah.
I think they mull over it. At that point, you kind of know. But I don't know. We'll see.
So you haven't seen the others? Have you got in notes? So you don't know who's really in it or anything?
I mean, we got the information on the 200 and something, but I'm gonna be honest, I didn't.
You know what, man?
look at
That's
that.
good. It keeps it authentic because if you were going out there, see that's just such a testament to your character because you could go out there and research that and go, what are they submitting? What are they
yeah.
saying? And then tweak what you're saying, man. And that's what some people would do. But I think if you're what this is, man, just to be
gotta be,
yourself,
man.
just be. Yeah, it goes
Yeah.
back to what you said.
You know? And if it is, it is. You know. And the thing about it is, I had so many people. I came in second in 2015. I had so many people. They were like, "Man, next time you get it, man, and it'll be better." And I'm thinking, it's pretty good. I mean, this time last year, I just was in a little fella in a little town that few people have heard of, and then a year later, listed as one of the top, in my field in the nation. That's pretty good. There's not many people that can say they're number 2 in the nation in anything, And I'm not saying that to impress, but to just impress the idea.
Yeah.
It's about what we talked about before, finding those moments and finding the beauty in them. And that was beautiful for me. And it really just gave me a renewed strength to keep on going what I was doing, which is the last part of the sound we talked about, seeing yourself beyond yourself.
Right.
Operating in optimism and excellence, utilizing all available resources, nourishing relationships, and don't stop.
Don't stop.
Keep
Don't.
on going.
You ain't got to run fast.
You
You
just
just got to run.
You just gotta run.
Right on,
That
man.
creates your sound, man.
Yeah. So if people who listen to this want to know more about you and what you're doing, where should they go to do that?
So if you want to know more about the music and the message, you can find out all you need to know on my website at mickysmithjr.com. And it's super, super simple, easy to remember. It goes like this. mickysmithjr.com. See, you won't forget it. It's in your head, guys.
That's good
mickysmithjr.com.
Yeah. What did you say? The music and the what? The music and the message?
The music and the message.
Man, that might be a good title for this episode.
Hey,
the
there you
music and the message. You probably used that somewhere before. But,
I don't know that I have.
Well,
We
that's
use
what
it
we're going to
today.
call this
The
episode.
sound, man, is the music and the message. That's the sound.
Well, I asked you a question at the beginning. Did anything good happen today? And if I had to ask myself the same question, I'm going to say that this interview was definitely the highlight of my day.
Cool, man.
Because that's what we called this show, Find the Good News. This is definitely good news. You're a good person. And I want to let people know about you and what's going on. Because really, ultimately, I think it's just an element of sharing yourself with other people. It's just one more way. And if it touches somebody, that's what I want this to be, is real conversations, man. I think we had a real conversation today, and we're not hiding things. Maybe you don't tell everybody's name, but we don't hide our hearts from people, man. Show them to people. Just let the little chapel door be open, and let's just find the good together, in each other especially.
That's it. Thank you for the opportunity, man.
Hey, let's hope it's a hit, man, because we're going to try and get the word out. It's not about, we're not doing this to, there's no purpose for this other than to just share good news and good people, man.
The event we're having this week, I told folks your presence is an opportunity for others. By you coming out, you give an opportunity to these young people. And I have a good friend of mine, he always says, every opportunity is another opportunity for another opportunity. So that's all this is. It's an opportunity, but it's so much more.
I like sayings like that. I heard a good one the other day, and I thought, man, that sounds silly, but I like that. It says, nothing changes if nothing changes.
That's it.
I was like, that's pretty good advice.
That's
Seems
it.
simple, but man, every opportunity
Simple
is another opportunity for another opportunity.
Simple truths, man.
Simple truths. That's right. Well, thank you, Mickey.
Thank you. And we won't say bye. We'll just say,
See you soon.
that's it. Till next time.
All right.
And I love